I wonder if that happened in Australia at all. Some of these things were global.
It was also a megafauna extinction. So he puts it down, the Clovis Indians didn't wipe out the megafauna, that was the explosion.
The mastodons, there's the parpits, the labrea,
what he finds,
Alaska,
what he finds with the animals is that they're pitted. The skulls and bones are pitted with this little black residue.
Yep.
And they're on one side. And in some cases, the skulls are deformed as if pressure had hit.
Right.
And it isn't a feature of preservation, it's a feature of when they were more fluid, when they were alive. Last year I was in Siberia for the 100th anniversary at Tunguska. And in the downtime we were entertained by being taken to museums and various places around Krasnoyarsk. And I was with a geologist from the U.S. Geological Survey. It was into Rick Firestone's theories. And as we went by one case, there was this great woolly mammoth skeleton preserved, and in the case were some other skeletons, and there was a bear skeleton. And he looked at it, he said, hang on, that's got those little black marks.
Really?
And then we looked carefully, and he said, and that bear skull is deformed. And the skull was not recent. It wasn't a recent bear. It was back in the Ice Age, and it was picked up in Siberia, and it was in the Krasnoyarsk Museum. So he was very intrigued to have found that in Siberia.
There's islands apparently in Siberia and off the coast of Russia where these mammoths are buried everywhere and crushed together.
In North America, they were wiped out almost instantaneously.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to have a look at some of the megafauna in Australia and see what happened there. So whatever wiped out the Clovis Indians and the megafauna in North America may have had some parallels in Australia. I went out with Rex Watson. His company drills for uranium, gold, water in many parts of Australia, particularly around the Murray-Darling Basin. I was interested if he'd found any evidence of these carbonaceous layers that Ted Bryan had talked about.
Each one of those piles represents 1 metre of penetration into the earth. So typically each row is about 30 metres, representing the formations as we go down to give us a physical record.
So what are we seeing here? We're seeing clay, then it's turning to what?
Well, we're going through clays and silts, and then we're going to sand groups that are our aquifer material.
And that's this one down.
So this white sand down here.
Okay.
We're going down to about 120. We'll start looking again.
Yep.
Typically this hole will go to about 140 metres and bottom out onto some kind of carbonaceous material. But yeah, we should have about 20 metres of nice sand to work with between 120 and 140 metres.
And what's this carbonaceous material you mentioned? What sort of stuff is it roughly?
It's a black clay with what I would know as rotting down vegetable matter.
Okay, like even tree roots and things.
Well, yeah, sometimes you can see leaves interwoven in it, and can range into even some hard, quite woody-looking stuff. Yeah.
Some catastrophic event occurred in this carbonaceous layer. Is it the same event that caused the formation of the sand dune lunettes, the death of the megafauna, and the extermination of so many Aborigines? We don't know. But very few, apart from Rick Firestone and Ted Bryan, can explain this sort of phenomena that exists in Australia. We need to re-examine our ideas on archaeology and take into account these destructions which I am sure have occurred to the Aboriginal nation as well. Darwin's theory of slow evolution by natural selection is no longer viable. Instead, catastrophic evolution occurs. We see the sudden and total death of megafauna such as the mammoth or the giant kangaroos suddenly being supplanted by smaller species. I believe this is an adaptation of the DNA to new electromagnetic environments. Small kangaroos take over from large kangaroos, and all of a sudden a new species has evolved. Under the influence of an extreme coronal mass ejection, a comet, a meteor, a planet in disturbed motion, or even an exploding nebula from outside the solar system, the electromagnetic spectrum reverts to chaos. It forms a new harmonic. The DNA instantly reacts to this extreme provocation. It intelligently but miraculously adapts to this spectrum of extreme celestial chaos. In a process called polyploidy, if the provocation is extreme enough, the DNA instantly creates a new species. Darwin got it wrong. It's not natural selection, it's the intelligent process of polyploidy that creates new species. This means that the megafauna's extinction was followed by the creation of new Australian fauna. It could also explain the divergence of the Australian Aborigine. This is all pretty revolutionary stuff and my brain's getting a little tired. Let's go and have a break and go up the Darling River. I was pondering the extinction of the megafauna in Australia, and I realised there's actually some examples of this right in our own backyard on the Darling River. Now, to illustrate this point, I got my friend John the Mega Chef to go hunting yabbies. What are yabbies?
Well, these lines are set, ready to run, with a nice piece of meat on the end of it to attract the yabbies, which they would really love. Hey, we got one. Yep, this one. He's hanging on to it. Hey, let's pull him out. Oh, watch out. So this one's fighting for its life. It knows it's going to be cooked shortly. You can see they're known as a red claw, these ones, and they will actually go blue as we cook them, then come pink again. Today, after catching our yabbies, I've actually had this pot on, which has had boiling salted water in it. Yabbies, aren't they fantastic? We're actually going to put a very simple sauce together today, and that is using some olive oil and some garlic. Just warm that through just to bring the garlic flavour out of the pan into the oil. Along with that, I'll put some herbs. Now this is thyme, a little bit of rosemary. I'm going to add a deglaze with some, this is verjuice. This is yum, you get the flavour of the wine. I'll add probably about a cup and a half of tomato, crushed tomatoes it is. So this has just come to the simmer. I'll add these beautiful yabbies. These are the ones we cooked just previously. Hey, how great are these? Beautiful fresh yabbies, done in a wonderful rich tomato sauce with garlic, herbs and olives. How great is that? Aren't we so lucky in this country? What a country we have. Hi, Peter.
This looks all right, John. What have we got here?
Looks very good. We've just been catching these yabbies today up at, on the riverbank, and they're beautiful.
Straight out of this little trip, just straight off the Darwin.
Yeah, it is.
Little
and what we do, they're beautiful, they're lovely and tender. And the most tender part is actually within the claws itself.
These are these little red claws.
They are, they're beautiful, lovely sweet ones.
I'm interested. Way up the river when I was at Wilcannia, the local Aborigine, the Bukindi guys were catching these big
they're the blue ones, yeah.
Bigger. Were these blue mega yabbies survivors of a past era? So where does this all lead us? We had the death of thousands of Aborigines at Lake Victoria. We have the extinction of Mungo Man. We have the disappearance of the megafauna. And we have the curious formation of the Lunette system along the Murray-Darling Basin. Are these all related? Did they happen at the same time? And most importantly, we have Aboriginal mythology attesting to river forming, mountain forming, death from cosmological disaster and resettlement. Can we piece all these facts together? I believe we can. I also believe The timing of when these events happen is much, much younger than modern archaeology and science reckons on. Now, Ted Bryant, as does Wal Thornhill, has some serious reservations about current dating techniques in archaeology and paleontology. Whether it's carbon dating, thermoluminescence, uranium, thorium, there's some serious problems if you have an electromagnetic effect at the same time. Let's have a little look at this.
We tried thermoluminescence, and we had probably in Australia the best person for dating thermoluminescence, and that looks at a signature or clock that starts in sand grains, and when they're exposed to the sun, the clock is zeroed, you bury it, and then the clock starts ticking. And it's not accurate. To zero the clock, it has to be in sunlight, so if a tsunami event occurs at night, the sand grains never get zeroed. We tried radiocarbon, and we thought radiocarbon was more precise, to find that it has flaws as well. It has these things called age reversals, and we're finding out a little bit more about age reversals. The carbon can be contaminated by more activity from the sun.
Cosmic rays.
Yeah, but it can also be contaminated if we flood the atmosphere with dead carbon.
Right.
And one of the ideas is that if we're looking at comet impacts, that these comets are hitting carbon-rich bottom sediment and flooding the atmosphere with dead carbon. So the age reversal causes an age reversal.
This means there'll have to be some drastic revision of the age of Mungo Man and the death of the megafauna. Now currently Mungo Man is roughly aged at around 40,000 years old. The death of the megafauna in Australia around about 60,000. I believe both of these dates are way out. The death of the megafauna in Europe, North America and Russia is reckoned only in terms of some 10,000 years, maybe even less. I suspect the dates given in Australia are drastically wrong. If we equate this with the demise of the Clovis Indian, I think you'll probably have a similar reason for the demise of Mungo Man. Cosmic dramas do drastically affect carbon and every other form of dating. But of course this is pure conjecture. We need to prove these facts. How do we go about doing it? Let's look at some of this Australian megafauna, see if it has this carbon pitting and iridium layers in the sand dune lunettes. Let's examine some of these bones at Lake Victoria and see if they display the same pittings as the megafauna. Only then can we lay to bed this conjecture. So how do we explain these dreadful cataclysms that decimated mankind? Modern archaeology and science don't have the answers. They reject mythology, they cling to outmoded theories. What happens today on planet Earth is nothing compared to the events of the not too distant past. The age of cataclysmic evolution and a chaotic solar system have arrived. Join us as we seek the truth.
We ran down on the mountain. A river out to sea. We lift off to the stars above. Our spirits shine for free.